The New Brandeis Movement, also called neo-Brandeisian or hipster antitrust, represents a radical shift in modern antitrust policy, prioritizing the fight against the concentration of economic power and its effects on democracy. Inspired by the thought and actions of Louis Brandeis, Supreme Court Justice who warned about the risks of the curse of bigness, this approach rejects the dominant paradigm of the Chicago School, which prioritizes consumer welfare and economic efficiency. Below are its pillars, impact, and controversies. Fundamental principles of the movement: a focus on economic power. The movement argues that corporate concentration not only distorts markets, but also threatens democracy by allowing companies to influence public policies and erode social equity. Beyond Prices criticizes the Chicago School's obsession with prices and efficiency, arguing that antitrust laws should also address inequality, stagnant wages, and the loss of autonomy of small businesses. Confronting Structuralism versus Behaviorism proposes analyzing the structure of markets, not just specific behaviors, using the Structure Conduct Performance (SCP) model inherited from Harvard School. For example, platforms like Amazon or Google, due to their size, create insurmountable barriers for competitors. Pursuing economic democratization aims to redistribute economic power to prevent a few from controlling the fate of many, linking antitrust with social justice. It is important to advance knowledge of key figures and some relevant actions. One of the main figures is Lina Khan, whose actions we will analyze carefully in a separate analysis as chairwoman of the FTC. She led lawsuits against Amazon and Meta, arguing that their market dominance stifles competition and innovation. Her article, Amazon's Antitrust Paradox, from 2017, is considered the manifesto of the movement. Another figure we must consider is Tim Wu, advisor to former President Joseph Biden, who promoted policies to curb mergers in critical sectors such as technology and pharmaceuticals. His book, The Curse of Bigness, revitalized Brandeis's legacy. Finally, and without exhausting the list of important people, we have Jonathan Kanter, head of the DOJ's Antitrust Division, who pushed for historic cases against Google for exclusionary practices in digital advertising. Highlighting some of the notable achievements, we note the blocking of the JetBlue/Spirit Airlines merger, 2023, to protect competition in aviation. The rule against non-compete clauses, 2024, benefiting 30 million workers' research on dark patterns in digital subscriptions, e.g. Adobe case. The position has received criticism and has entered debates. Market simplification. The movement is accused of ignoring the benefits of economies of scale and innovation in large companies. Critics point out that concentrated industries, such as semiconductors, require massive investments that only giants can undertake. A certain regulatory populism. Some academics argue that its anti-greatness rhetoric is a rebranding of Harvard School without offering new solutions for globalized markets. The existence of a risk of arbitrariness. The focus on democratic values could politicize antitrust agencies, prioritizing ideological agendas over technical analysis. Possible effects in Latin America. Experts like William Kovacic warned that their adoption in regions with populist governments could justify excessive state interventions, harming investments. The global impact and future of the movement. The movement has inspired reforms in the EU, such as the Digital Markets Act, which can be consulted in our legal regulation lab, limiting the power of big tech. In the US, although facing judicial resistance, for example, revocation of the no-compete ban in 2024, its legacy endures in the shift in narrative. Corporate concentration is no longer seen as inevitable, but as a problem to be corrected. A set of cross-cutting alliances, where conservative figures like Josh Hawley support parts of its agenda, recognizing risks of monopolies on individual freedoms. In academic research, universities and think tanks prioritize studies on economic power and democracy, reviving debates from the early 20th century. In conclusion, the New Brandeis is not just an antitrust theory, but a call to reimagine capitalism. As Zephyr Teachout pointed out, Her critique of consumer welfare as the sole standard has exposed systemic flaws, from post-COVID inflation to wage stagnation. Although its future depends on legal victories and political support, its greatest contribution is to remind us that antitrust laws are, in essence, tools to preserve democracy.